Welcome to the show. Come on inside to Bearded Biomed, where knowledge provides. We're talking HTM with the layback style, so grab a seat, kick back, and stay a while. Diving deep into your biomedical streams with stories to share some of my expertise. Tune in, relax, let the knowledge flow. In the world of biomed, there's plenty to know. This bearded host has a passion for the quest, bringing you insights, dropping in some guests. In this healthcare world, I'm breaking it down. Gotta let folks know why I wear the crown. Bearded Biomed. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to an all-new episode of the Bearded Biomed. I appreciate you joining today's show. It's been a little bit since I've dropped an episode, and I'm ready to be back in front of the mic and kind of collect some of the things that have just been occurring over the past month, my own thoughts, and some things that have been occurring in the field. Hopefully you get something out of it. As always, everybody's support is always appreciated. Any amount of support you're willing to lend, a like, a subscribe, a share, whether you're watching or listening, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, any amount of just giving a little bit of credence to the show helps the channel grow, allows me to expand and possibly reach other new viewers and listeners. Simple sharing to your colleagues, letting them know that it exists. The more I can grow, the better the content I can provide for you guys, and the more avenues and doors open up. So I appreciate everyone that does support. On top of that, we are actually in November, go figure, and we are quickly approaching holiday time. If you haven't grabbed a copy of Ollie The Biomed, I think it would be a fantastic Christmas gift opportunity. It is the very first Biomed children's book that lays out a day-to-day depiction of what we do for our medical devices in our hospitals. And from what I hear, it is been given quite the accolade from colleagues across the spectrum. Allows their kids, their nieces, their nephews to see what mom and dad, uncle, aunt do. But also the end goal of the book was to allow people that aren't familiar with our field to learn about the field too. So if you have a copy, great. If you don't have a copy, I'll have a link in the description. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart.com. You Google All the Biomed, you'll find it. Also, I love to donate books to children's hospitals, book drives, things of that nature. Last year, I donated some to Toys for Tots. So if anybody has some suggestions or places they would like me to send a book over to where you can put it in your toy drive that you're assisting with, I'd be more than happy to. The book isn't about making money. It's about spreading the joy of the biomed profession. So help me spread the word. All right. So going to hit a few segments today, get into some topics. First thing we want to do, as always, is let's catch up on current events and get into bearded news.
I like do da cha-cha.
Prime Minister of Sweden visited Washington today, and my tiny little nipples went to France.
That's what it said on the news. And the news never lies.
Holy shit, there's a lot of news.
All right. We are here, Bearded News, one of my favorite segments, hit current events, recaps, things of that nature. My last episode, I was in the threshold of quickly approaching and going to the Uptime Services Dental Conference, and it was an incredible opportunity. Obviously, being in Nashville, everybody's going to have a good time, which I certainly did. Probably too much of a good time, but nonetheless, I've gained the insight I was hoping to gain into the dental device infrastructure. One of the key things that I grasped, which it's one thing for people you talk to in that community, kind of giving you an idea, a synopsis of what they experience on a day-to-day. But to hear it from the people, the boots on the ground that are constantly going in and out of these dental offices, an ADA perspective, and just kind of getting a whole encompassing view of what the dental device servicing industry is like, it took me aback a little bit just by some of the things I'd came across. What separates the dental industry from the biomed industry? Even though it's the same, they're all medical devices. We understand that. But what is the key difference? One of them is regulatory compliance and oversight. So from a biomed perspective, we deal with so many different accrediting agencies. CIHQ, CLIA, DNV, Joint Commission, OSHA, NFPA, FDA, et cetera. We can keep going. From the broad spectrum, we are very heavily entrenched from what CMS, requires of us to do. From a dental device servicing PM regulatory compliance standard, there really isn't one. Let me explain. If you think about dental offices in your general area, you might pass a dozen of them on your way to work or on your way home. There are way too many dental practices in the United States for an auditor or surveyor to go into every single one of these clinics. It's impossible. They are literally the Starbucks of the United States. There's one on every corner. There's a dental practice that has not seen oversight since it's either opened or for a manner of years to decades, no matter how long they've been. And this was really shocking to me, just in the fact of, as biomeds, it's just a regular day-to-day norm that we know that we're going to have oversight over our backs, make sure that we're doing our P's and our Q's and our due diligence and our attention to detail with how we are servicing, taking care of, and of course, documentation of our devices. None of that exists in the dental industry. And some of the stories of the technicians that I spoke to and some of the interviews I had really opened my eyes, and maybe it took me aback, really trying to understand and fathom just how we got here. And that's why I can appreciate Uptime and what their goal is with trying to rein in what is currently the wild, wild west and bring some semblance of order and understanding and procedure to how things need to go. That's the mission between Uptime, CBET, and everybody involved. And I would tend to agree. After some of the horror stories I've heard of what some of these dental clinics are getting away with, you may want to do more research into your particular dental practice that you are using personally to make sure that they're on the up and up and they're actually following just general guidelines of OSHA. Like the infection control aspect and just the way that they're servicing and taking care of their equipment or lack thereof kind of just makes me worry at wanting to utilize a dental practice. Being said, it's something that every American has to deal with at some point in time. The level of just complete anonymity that these dental practices have was just, it's scary. So there will be more conversation on this. To me, the fact that this is such an unregulated landscape, it's something that I want to keep an eye on, because there is change coming. From the discussions I had, the meetings I got to sit on like a fly in the wall and really just soak in all this information was absolutely incredible. Coming in the near future, I do plan on having CEO of Uptime, Janesh Patel, and also Russ Baker going to be joining us to do a deep dive, what their mission is, what they've seen from a macro and micro standpoint. I think it'll be very beneficial and good information to share. So I do appreciate them allowing me to come in and enter their world. I got to meet a lot of interesting folks that have been doing the dental service thing for decades, and it was really cool. Again, if you're a biomed and you want to do this, prime opportunity. If you wanted to learn more about that, reach out to me, beardedbiomed@gmail.com, and I'll connect you with the folks over there that can help get you some contractor work and some training, free training, to get your foot in the door as well, make some extra cash. Some other things occurred in the landscape. I happened to be paying attention on LinkedIn from time to time, and I saw a post that Mark Newell made. If you're unfamiliar with Mark, he is very much one of the key voices when it comes to right to repair. And he wrote something that I felt was pretty insightful, that really I tend to agree with, which what his premise was. Wanted to read it to you in case you did not catch it, because this was it hit the nail on the head. So this is what Mark said. Any other healthcare service providers seeing an increase in the number of medical device manufacturers who are now assigning an arbitrary lifespan on a medical product by the model number and by having a lifespan based upon the individual's product's installation date, not the model itself being discontinued. I have seen more situations where the individual device age-related end of support assigned by the manufacturer is not due to any calibration, performance/compliance, wear and tear, lack of part support issues, solely the installation date. This manufacturer tactic forces a healthcare provider to replace equipment prematurely. For example, patient care device 123XYZ is actively being sold as of today. But if you own one that is greater than 7 years, they won't service it even though they're actively selling the exact same unit under the exact same model number, but parts are interchangeable. Can you imagine if non-medical manufacturers did this for cars, washing machines, furniture, dishwashers, home air conditioners, etc.? One more reason for supporting right to repair healthcare equipment.
What? That is crazy.
I could not agree more. Holy smokes. I was thinking about this before I saw it. There are some manufacturers out there that are discontinuing support for something that might just be a couple years older than the exact same model that they are still selling on the market. But they won't support it because this is dated this date, and this one that's a couple years newer, even though it's the exact same device, it's ludicrous. So I think as Biomeds, we would all agree that equipment typically outlives its lifespan set by OEMs. You know, usually new equipment turns around every 10, 15, sometimes 20 years, depending on the manufacturer, when they come out their latest and greatest. But I have yet to come across a device in my 15 years of being a biomed that has failed and was unrepairable and unsupportable either at or before the lifespan that is set by the OEM. In my experience, and I would attest many others of my colleagues out there watching and listening, the equipment lasts way longer than that. And, you know, it's one thing to set a end of life date for something that the manufacturer is no longer going to support. That's something that we are pretty used to on a day-to-day basis as biomeds. But the fact that something that is still supportable, that you're deeming healthcare facilities that are already struggling with just trying to replace the older crap that they have, you're trying to make them replace stuff that they don't need to replace. So I still have clients, especially in rural hospitals. I am very much entrenched in rural healthcare facilities. They have devices 20 to sometimes 30 years plus that are still in use, still fully functional, and have a slight modicum of parts that are available either through some vendor that purchased all the remaining parts after the OEM stopped supporting that device, or eBay, or rob Peter pay Paul, or some mixture or dealings with that, you know, to try to keep these devices afloat. Now, I would argue that if you're not doing a proper life cycle management plan as a facility, you're doing a disservice to yourself and to your patients. But it's just interesting to consider that this is the route that some manufacturers are taking just to increase their bottom line. It's not necessary. It's certainly not advantageous to consumer. And I hope that we can come to some kind of agreement or between the technicians, the facilities, and the OEMs to make this make sense. Because right now, based on what Mark alluded to here, I do not think that this makes sense. And if somebody knows how to make it make sense to me and everybody else that's probably asking the same question, I would certainly invite you to give that answer. Good on Mark to bring that up. Anywho, that's it for Bearded News. Let's get into another segment. So what I am thinking, let's get into next is career advice. Here we go.
I learned a lesson. Never half-ass two things. Whole-ass one thing.
All right, we're here at career advice. So I recently had a Zoom call with Dr. Smoot's class out in Maricosta. They're about to graduate in December. So congrats to these soon-to-be fully fledged biomeds. Go out there, hope you do big things, and hit the ground running.
Welcome to Shawshank.
But there's a lot of interview questions. There was, there's always interest in how can I branch into this sector of the field, that sector of the field. And it's always a good question to ask. But the number one thing I usually get asked by either new grads or soon to be graduates of students are really, how can I specifically target getting into imaging? And I just wrote down key career advice points that I think are just things that you can look at pursuing, or different avenues of how to get to that objective that you want to do. Imaging is one of the more, I guess, lucrative, sexier aspects of biomed. But I mean, there's so many different specialty modalities out there. You can truly kind of build your basket of what you want to be capable of as a biomed any way you want. As a biomed, no matter what kind of specialty modality you want to get into, what kind of devices you want to learn, what you want to be trained in, you have to have a solid foundation in basic biomed skills. You have to have the foundation of everything that comes with being a biomed, the fundamentals of troubleshooting, understand general electrical theory. You have to have hands-on experience with general medical devices too. At least that's my belief, just because the more kind of devices you get your hands onto, you just become a more well-rounded biomed as well. And it kind of just helps create a base before you start diving into imaging devices, which can be very complex. Let's say you want to bake something for the first time. Are you going to jump into the most detailed type of baking that you possibly can, or are you going to start out with something as simple as a pound cake or muffins?
Started making it, had a breakdown. Bon appetit.
Start with the basics, start with an easier threshold and work your way up. Next thing I wanted to talk about is, obviously you want to pursue specialized training and possibly certifications. So when you're getting into MRI, CT, your portables, nuke med, mammography, on and on, DR, whatever. Not that it's something that you critically need, but it's something that won't hurt your chances, and that's pursuing a certification and radiology equipment specialist, the CRES cert, which is offered through ACI, through AMI. I look at it as there's a lot of imaging folks out there that don't have it because they said they don't need it, which in a position that they are currently in, yeah, they probably don't need it because of the position they're already in. It's a divided line on who decides is worthwhile of pursuing a certification or not. I am on the side that having something that others don't is always going to make you more marketable. Whether you agree or not, that's just my opinion. I feel like having that certification would just set you above your peers. Obviously, somebody that has been doing imaging for 10, 15, 20 years that doesn't need it is obviously going to be more sought after than somebody that's just getting into it and has a CRES. I understand that. So another thing is, depending on what state you are going to pursue an imaging career in, be aware of the state and of course the federal laws when it comes to imaging. You need to be aware of FDA regulations, but also, for instance, in Texas, imaging is a little bit more scrupulous when it comes to maybe a different state that might not have the same level of documentation requirements, things of that nature. Just what I'm saying is just be familiar with what your state's requirements are. Imaging, it's combining software, electronics, physics, and you need to be able to troubleshoot on an analytical level to be able to diagnose and fix imaging equipment. A lot of this stuff, when it goes down, it needs to be addressed right then and there. Imaging equipment being now CT, MRI, facilities are losing thousands of dollars every minute.
Fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it. Fix it, fix it, fix it.
Really try to focus your efforts on developing your diagnostic capabilities. Next thing I want to touch on is networking within in the imaging area is even more so critical than just the biomed area. You're going to have a hell of a time getting documentation, software keys, manuals, part support, etc. The level of backdoor channels, jumping through hoops, having connections, having those capabilities outside of your general network are way more important than I could ever fathom to describe. It's already difficult for a general biomed to obtain those same things. Now, take that same concept and put it on devices that are worth 10 to 20 times the amount of the general device that you're typically working on. It's so much more difficult to get some of this documentation. So you really got to be network savvy to pull some of these out. Not saying it's not impossible, but let's also allude that you probably won't have access to every bit of documentation you will ever need. I'm hoping you don't have to come across that. All right, so there's a few quick ways that you can get this training specifically. So the first is you can enroll in imaging institutes, such as a main one that everybody's familiar with is RSTI, in-house training for the people they hire on or that they're moving into the imaging sector. You can call that employer-sponsored training. So they'll either have it set up within their organization or they will send you to a manufacturer, pay that whatever that amount is or whatever their agreement is with that OEM to send you out to get that training. And usually they have tailored training for those individuals. The more upfront way to get imaging training is to get hired by one of these OEMs. And, of course, they're going to train you in that particular model or series of models that you're going to be expected to service across the country or your particular region. And you have the option of going through a program like what CBET has, College of Biomedical Equipment Technology. They have a radiology program as well. It doesn't hurt to join workshops, webinars, conferences, to where you can make the networking track that I alluded to a minute ago, to where you can kind of facilitate this training for yourself. And of course, probably the least expensive and maybe more accessible way for you to get training would just do it through, normal means of gaining hands-on experience, internships, mentorship through either an in-house or field service capacity. So usually, let's say you folks that want to pursue imaging. So as you are working your way up the ranks in these in-house programs or even field service, and you demonstrate the capacity to have an analytical mind, to be a diagnostician, to be capable of taking on more and more responsibility and handling more per cap devices, that is a great opportunity and easy way for you to shadow folks that are already working on these devices and gain that insight, gain that momentum to where they can start allowing you to, for instance, do a PM on a C-arm or a mobile x-ray, kind of dip your toe into there. And usually when you start being successful in those things and you're grasping them really quick, that's when they start allowing you more and more opportunities to get in some of the bigger, badder, sexier devices like your CT, your MRIs, etc. So those are some of the opportunities, or I guess my advice for if you were wanting to pursue imaging. I think it'd probably be beneficial at some point for me to bring a key figure or two that is entrenched in just imaging and just kind of discuss what the avenue looks like and their experiences and some of their suggestions. If that's something you'd be interested in, just let me know, comment section below, shoot me an email. I have some individuals in my mind already that we could do that with. So that is my career advice for today. Last segment before we get on out of here is I was speaking with my technicians. We're out in the field and we were working on, over the month, there's been a couple of opportunities that brought this subject up, but everybody has their general tool layout that, you should run with as a biomed. Everybody knows you should probably have a socket wrench set, a bit set, screwdrivers, some crescent wrenches, things of that nature. What I wanted to bring up are some tools that I recommend or that I carry with my daily loadout that have come in clutch for different reasons. So let's get into
Tools! Duct tape, zip ties, and gloves. I have to have my tools.
All right. So first thing I want to talk about are what I would deem as retaining pliers. So the particular ones that I have are made by Channellock. I love these things because when you have the little retainer rings, which are typically on, they get used for a modicum of things. I usually see them on some hospital bed assemblies. Your blanket cabinets, the fan motor, they have a retaining ring on them. There's a couple of other devices on there. This is a retaining ring, by the way. The most frustrating part about a retaining ring is you trying to get it off with the tool that you don't necessarily should be using, and it ends up flying somewhere like a spring. I'm going to put a link in the description for each of these things I'm going to bring up. But this is just a simple tool that has been useful for so many years now, and it's something that I recommend every biomed should have. Next thing I want to bring up are punches. Now, the particular ones that I use, it's a set of like 5 or 6 of them right here. They're made by Irwin. Every now and then you're going to come across, a rivet or something that you need to punch out, and it's not something I always have to use, but when I needed it, I had it. One of those things I was talking about when I was out in the field with my techs is we came across a Total Care hill rod bed that the power cord ripped off from the main circuit board. And to replace that board is, I want to say, like somewhere between $600 to $800. The reason that it got ripped off the board is when you plug the cord into the wall, the nurses take the bed with the patient in it while it's still plugged into the wall, and it pulls off the 2 solder joints off the board. It's a little two pin connector, pops in every time, rips off there, because there is nothing that is truly keeping that power cord from pulling it off of there. It's like a singular wire or a piece of metal that just clamps down with 2 screws to hold the cable in place, which does absolutely nothing. Instead of spending $600 to $800 to replace an entire board, when all you have to do, again, this is if the main solder lines and everything on the board aren't damaged, which usually aren't. It's a clean break. You can still take that connector, put it down in there, resolder it on there. Usually I put a little bit more on there, give it a little bit more heft, and you just save the facility hundreds of dollars. But the funny part that I came across is while most people learn some modicum of soldering in school, nobody runs with a soldering iron in their day-to-day tool bag. So the one that I recommend, what I carry right here, is a portable soldering iron. You just plug it into an outlet. It heats up in like 10 seconds. And I do my quick soldering, and it has a cap on there that you can screw on, and you can just throw it right in your bag and not have to worry about it cooling down or anything. They do have some other models out there as well. I've seen the butane torch fluid ones that you just fill in there and it just runs off of that. So you don't even have to worry about plugging it into the wall. Most recently, I've seen some ones on Amazon where they are USB-C rechargeable. Supposedly they heat up in a few seconds, so that's something worth considering as well. The reason I'm pointing to the one that I talk about is it's literally $20, and I've had it for at least 4 years, and it's still going strong. I think every biomed should have some level of a soldering kit. Just my opinion. All right. So this one's not necessarily a tool, but it's something used along with tools, and bungee cable. I bet you're asking, why would I need a bungee cable? So when you are working on hospital stretchers or especially surgical tables, there is a shroud. And unless you want to hold it up or have to stack things under it, it's just easier and quick and efficient to utilize some bungee cables. So prime example, Steris 3085 surgical table. You got the screw on each end of the shroud. Take those out, lift the table all the way up. If you're able to, take a bungee cable each corner and use the accessory slats on each side of the table and use it to wrap your bungee cable around, and it hoists up the shroud and keeps it level for you out of your face so you can do what you need to do. Replace the batteries, maybe check for a leak, whatever. Anywhere from 2 to 4 of them can help save your bacon sometimes. And let's see. I recently picked this guy up right here. Electrical screwdriver. It's been pretty nice. My thing is, when you're using electric drill on medical devices, you don't want to have an over excessive amount of torque because you don't want to, obviously strip the bits. I hate it when I come across something that has a strip bit. But for something that doesn't need, there's some devices out there that you literally have to take out like 20, 30 screws. They're tiny, they're little. You're literally going to give your hand arthritis by the time you finish taking out all those screws just to do a simple part swap. Like I said, I don't encourage anybody use an electric screwdriver for something that you're trying to put a lot of force on. This is just something for simple, easy, get a crap load of screws that you're having to deal with out of the way without causing any damage to them, obviously. So this guy right here, I love it because it's got a magnetic cap top. You pull it off and it's got interchangeable bits from your torque to your Phillips to your flathead. Got a LED light just to give you a little bit extra visual prowess. So I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it right now. And it's super small and USB-C rechargeable. So, and last but not least, typically at some point in your career, if you haven't already, you are going to need to replace wiring, fix wiring, because it's going to be frayed, strip, burn off, name the ladder. These couple of things that I'm pointing to right here have come in handy so many times. So personally, it drives me absolutely insane when I'm diving into a repair and I see the prior technicians work to where instead of making sure that there is a sound connection between two wires, it's literally the shielding is stripped off and you see it bunched up or wrapped around real quickly. There's no covering on there. Don't even get me started if I see electrical tape. A Biomed should not have electrical tape. I'm sorry, that's my stance. You should not have electrical tape. There are way better ways for you to make a sealed wire connection, power cord connection, than freaking electrical tape. And most of the time, this stuff should only be a temporary serve anyhow, especially power cords, which hopefully if you're replacing the plug cap on there, you're using a hospital grade as well. I've seen that a couple times where we're not using hospital grade plug caps on power cords either. If you can, replace the damn cord. But obviously, if it's something that is an easy, you can throw a hospital grade power plug cap on there. I usually run with a couple of those, by the way, in my bag too. But anyhow, I love for small innate wiring that maybe you can't order from the manufacturer or it doesn't come in assembly anymore, especially the stuff that's end of life and we're trying to keep going. I love this because it allows you to put two wires together. It's got the solder in the center of it, so you can make a solid connection that's binding, that's holding both of the wires together. And then it's got the heat shrink wrap that you can literally close in and seal the gap between both of the wires as well. I got one more thing for you. WD40 Pen, Teflon tape. These are the Teflon tape. You'll probably come across where you need to use it for like a tabletop autoclave, maybe some steam bulk sterilizers as well. Anything pneumatically or that's surgical sinks as well. It's come in handy for me quite a bit of time. The WD40 pen, I love these things because I don't want to carry around a whole cans. The WD40 pen is nice. If I just got something that is really rusted or that's giving me extra effort to take off, quick, easy, take the cap off, rub the pen on there, and it's helped a little bit. So yeah, those are my tool recommendations or my tool/accessories that I'd recommend you carrying in your pack. And if anybody has any suggestions on some out-of-the-box ideas on what you can put in your day-to-day Biomed bag, please feel free to share them. Anywho, we're in the month of November. I'm planning some good people to come onto the show, some insightful interviews. I'm happy that I got to sit back down in front of the mic. I have missed it. It's just been a very crazy time. I think a lot of my fellow Biomeds out there can agree. The end of the year is not for the weak when it comes to our workload. PM's got to get done. Repairs are flying. We're getting into holiday time. Just, it seems more busy. And, it's certainly, it's hold on and survive until after the new year. So anywho, I appreciate everybody's support. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Until next time, may the beard be with you.
Biomed.